Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be continuing our look through the Great Pan series of paperbacks, this time with Great Pans 250 up to about Great Pan 400, and there's some absolutely fantastic and gorgeous books for us to look at today. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay, so the first book we're looking at today is The Shipbusters, Ralph Barker. Now this is Great Pan 251. It's another one of their sort of war-related ones that they are quite sort of famous for. Nice copy of this one actually, and dated 1959. Yeah, really nice jacket on that one by DeMarco, it says. And this is a really, I'd say, classic period for Pan books. And when you compare the quality of their books to other publishers' output at this time, I think they are sort of head and shoulders over quite a lot of them, I have to say. G252, The Short Reign of Pippin 4. This is by John Steinbeck. I don't particularly like Steinbeck's sort of humour books that much, although, you know, I do really like him as an author. G253, Erskine Caldwell. Great sort of painted jacket there, but sadly my copy's not the best in existence here. This very earth, yeah. 253, A Tale of Tragedy and Violence. Yeah, very nice jacket, that one. And like a lot of these Pan books, I did just pick them up when I've been out and about. Unlike Penguin, where there are specific Penguin book dealers, there isn't really, I would say, specialist Pan book dealers, sadly. But, you know, I always grab Pan books when I find them. This is nice. It's got a Pef cover there. Perhaps not his best one, but still interesting all the same. Ellery Queen, Halfway House. A bit of a beaten up old one, that. But as I said, I just grab these whenever I see them. Literally simple as that. This is a nice one by C.S. Forrester, one of my favourite authors. Not the greatest of subjects, 10 horrific stories of Nazi brutality by Britain's master storyteller. He is fantastic. What a great writer C.S. Forrester was. I think he's quite underrated today, and I'm surprised he's not more well read, because he's absolutely fantastic. I always remember, obviously he's most famous for the Hornblower books. I remember reading Churchill's history of the Second World War, and he actually mentions in that about how the new Hornblower book had been published, and he'd managed to secure an early copy of it and was reading it coming back from America. Absolutely fantastic. So Churchill was a fan. This is another crime one, John Ross MacDonald, G260, a Lou Archer thriller, and this is The Barbarous Coast. He's got his fans, hasn't he, John MacDonald? Western now, Fiddlefoot by Luke Short. Don't know a lot about this one. Nice jacket on that, actually, really nice painted cover. This would have been the era when Westerns were starting to get big on TV. And maybe it was to tie in with that, Westerns as a genre. This is the second Pan book of Crosswords. As I said, the only sort of reason you would ever own an old ancient crossword book is because you collect the publisher rather than wanting it for it being a crossword book. But, you know, they are very scarce, those, I have to say. Any sort of crossword, but the Penguin ones are exactly the same. Love Me Sailor, Robert S. Close. She was alone with a crew, lashed by a hurricane and maddened by desire. Sounds like a terrible combination, if you ask me. Looks like a bit of a swashbuckling romance, that one, by the look of it. Young Man on a Dolphin, Anthony Thorne. Okay. One Man and an Island of Women. Another one by DeMarco. 266, The Naked Magi. Filmed by Titanus Productions, starring Ava Gardner and Anthony Francoisca. An MGM release. Okay, well there we are. So it's another movie tie-in. Pan did quite a few of those, didn't they? Edgar Wallace now, The Angel of Terror. I've got to admit, I find Edgar Wallace a bit, well, in fact, not a bit. I find him very old-fashioned these days and almost unreadable, so he hasn't held up very well, I'm afraid. Anne Duffield, Fire Meta, enthralling blend of love and intrigue. Okay. Was Love to be Denied? Another absorbing story by the queen of romantic fiction. Well, there we are. Well, she's not Barbara Cartland, but Barbara Cartland does have a book or two in Pan. And another wartime one, Channel Dash, Terence Robertson, dramatic escape of the German battle cruisers. Why? Thundered Winston Churchill. Why, indeed? A few pictures in that one. This is a lovely book. I've had a couple of copies from these, and even though this one isn't mint, this is the best one I've got, and this is Charles Chilton's The Red Planet, the famous BBC space thriller with Jet Morgan and his crew. So I believe this was a BBC radio show, was it? Yeah. Made famous in Charles Chilton's thrill-packed BBC radio series, which I have heard. And yet the sequel to Journey into Space. Long time ago, BBC did release them though, so they do exist. I remember them being very, very good. Overdue, Francis Clifford. A Nightmare of Terror and Suspense. It's a nice sort of action cover there, isn't it? Can't quite make out the cover artist there, but I do think that's a very, very nice cover in actual fact. 275. This is 276, Sapphires on Wednesday. Another sort of interesting jacket. Meet the toughest private eye of all. Malcolm Gare. Mark Rayburn was the toughest private eye of all. Well, this is a fun one. Dog versus Crime. The fantastic story of Rex III, the greatest of all police dogs. Well, there you go. There we are. Now, if it was back in the day, and I was being commissioned to do a brand new Pan cover, and someone said, you're going to be painting the brand new Pan book cover, and they give you that one, Dog versus Crime. You've got to be a little crestfallen, haven't you? Let's be honest. Anyway, I'm just going to pause there. I'm going to make a little bit more room, pull the camera out. There we go. Night of the Mocking Widow, Carter Dickson. That's quite interesting. That's like bits of typewriter, isn't it? Yeah, interesting cover, that. Glenn Stewart did that one. Don't recognise that name. But an interesting sort of concept nonetheless for Carter Dickson. Peter Cheyney, he wrote lots of crime ones, didn't he? A Slim Callahan thriller. A PEF cover here, Uneasy Terms. Shame someone's scribbled out the 2 and 6 there, but yeah, quite interesting. I've seen that sort of technique on some of the Agatha Christie's as well. Blackwater, H.L. Treadry, Taylor cover, a hell ship on its voyage of death. Oh, blimey. Hundreds of miles from help, the sick, the dying, the dead, no doctor, no medical supplies. The second mate, crazy with pain, hurled himself overboard. The carpenter went berserk. Well, blimey, O'Reilly. Enough said. The Nun's Story, another movie tie-in. This one is another lovely PEF cover, and that is Audrey Hepburn on the front there. There she is on the back. The Nun's Story. I think that was a big hit in its day, you know. Picture cover now for Great Pan 292, A Room in Moscow. Sally Belfrage, the best book for years about everyday life in Moscow. Dear oh dear. You wouldn't rush there, would you? Let's be honest. You wouldn't have rushed there in the late 50s. That wouldn't have been your top holidaying venue, would it? Young Renee, Mazo de la Roche, G299, another one of those sort of romancy ones that my gran used to read. Those and the plantation novels, they were everywhere. And books by Raphael Sabatini. One of my all-time favourite Pan book covers, this one by PEF. It's absolutely beautiful, almost mint, unread uncirculated copy of this one. Absolutely love it. I would have loved to have got Pef to sign that one, but it was obviously one I didn't have at the time. G number 300. Look at that. It's gorgeous, isn't it? To Love and Be Wise, Josephine Tey. That is a very, very nice jacket, that one, you have to say. What a skill to be able to sort of paint to that sort of level of quality. Beauty, isn't it? Absolute beauty. New edition 1959. This is actually a reprint, that one, from 1963. But boy, oh boy, what a gorgeous copy, that one. Gulf Coast Stories, another one from Erskine Caldwell. And these have all got that similar sort of style, haven't they? Cashing in on God's Little Acre, which was the big hit from Erskine Caldwell. Lost Cities, Leonard Cottrell. How they were built, who lived in them, how they were found again. And we've already seen almost all of these, I think. Life Under the Pharaohs, The Bulls of Minos and The Lost Pharaohs, all of which were published by Pan Books. And this is another one in that particular series. The Man in Charge, Richard Jessup. One man stood between him and the death cell. And even though that is not credited, you almost have to say it's Pef's style. So almost certainly that is a Pef cover. My Years with Churchill by Norman McGowan, an intimate portrait by his valet. Only everyone was cashing in on the Churchill boom, weren't they? I bet being Churchill's valet, he did travel a bit. Fortune is My Enemy, Richard Pape, a nerve-shattering spy thriller by the author of Boldness Be My Friend. Another Taylor cover there. That's really good, actually. Shame my copy's a bit beaten up, but a fiendish blend of fact and fiction, it said. The Talisman Ring, Georgette Heyer. A full-blooded romantic thriller. This is one of her historical romance sort of thrillers, which she did a lot. Dark Interlude, Peter Cheyney. He's having a bit of a revival, I think, Peter Cheyney. So, you know, these, I guess they are what they are. They're not perhaps as hard-boiled as we might like today, but they still have their fans. And, you know, if you try and collect them in Pan, you're not going to have too much trouble putting a run of these together. And another edition of The Four Just Men, Edgar Wallace. Almost certainly has to be a reprint, I would think. Yes, this is why this one's in my collection, because it's got a new cover. So it was first published in 1950 by Pan Books, and then reprinted in 1953. And this is the third edition, which has been reset in 1959, and they gave it a new cover as well. So that's why I've already got this book in my collection, and we've already seen it in one of my earlier videos. But this is the first with that number, G318. So if you do collect Pan Books and you want to get every single number, some books you are going to end up having multiple copies of. Something like Casino Royale, for example, you're going to have 4 or 5 different editions in your collection. From the first reprint, there's like the movie tie-in, there's like another uniform edition. So there's at least 4 I can think of Casino Royale just off the top of my head, and they've all got different jackets. So that is part and parcel of collecting Pan Books. But if you like the books for the books as well as the cover art, you're not going to go far wrong. This is G321, a very nice edition of Tales of Mystery and Imagination by Edgar Allan Poe. Some of the classic works in there. And as we've not seen quite yet, we've not seen many of the Pan Book of Horror Stories, but believe me, they are on their way. All the early ones of those. G322 again, Erskine Caldwell. It's got that same sort of style of cover artwork there. Episode in Palmetto. Looks like it's by Helwy, something like that. Helwy. J.J. Marek. Gideon's Night. Very, very nice jacket, that one. Absolutely superb Can't. Oh, it is Pef. Yeah, my finger was covering it up. So nice Pef. Very atmospheric, isn't it? That. Oh, fantastic. Very nice. This one's actually in a bag. I don't actually know why it's in a bag. It's a particularly... Oh, I can see why, because it's signed by Pef just down across her coat there. I don't know if you can see that, but it's quite nice, isn't it? So the Case of the Musical Cow, 326. So no Stanley Garner, but one that's been signed by the cover artist Sam Peffer. This is The Diamond Smugglers. Absolutely fantastic book, this. I mean, it reads as good as a James Bond novel, and you can certainly see where he got a lot of his story ideas for Diamonds Are Forever. That's for certain. If you've never read The Diamond Smugglers, it's really good. I mean, the stories in there are absolutely fantastic. I've got a couple of copies of it. This is my sort of reader copy that I keep out literally just to read because it's that good. So it does come recommended, that one. And then there's that was the first edition, and then this is the follow-up, but it also shares the same number, G328. So this is just literally another edition of it. So this was, I believe, the first. Yeah, first in 1960, which would be right. So that's my reader. That's my nice collection copy. And then this is a later reprint, which was 1965, but probably an early one with that particular jacket. I actually think the first is as good as the second. The first has got more going on. But very good nonetheless. And I said highly recommended if you are at all interested in the sort of the diamond trade. Phyllis Hastings, 331, Scarecrow Lover. He was a murderer, but he gave the love she craved. This is sort of appealing to the Erskine Caldwell market by the looks of it. And we've just about run out of room there, so I'm going to pause it once more and pull the camera out for the final time. So 332, Strike for Death, John Creasy, one of his Inspector West novels here. DeMarco is the cover artist on that one. Chief Inspector, and these are sort of super quick reads, and certainly there's a lot to enjoy in these old Pan books still to this day. There's some absolutely great fiction in here. C.Y. Lee, The Flower Drum Song. A tender and delightful story of the pursuit of love and happiness in San Francisco's Chinatown. Now a great Rodgers and Hammerstein musical. There we are. So it became a musical, that one. That's 334. Dr. No. There we are. That's the first Pan edition of the classic Ian Fleming Dr. No. This one's also been signed by Pef, just down in the corner there. Yeah, shame my copy's not brilliant, but hey, I'm pleased to have it. I mean, all the Ian Fleming Pan firsts are quite collectible these days, aren't they? Great book, not my favourite, but still a really great Bond novel. Irwin Shaw, Lucy Crown, interesting cover there, by the author of The Young Lions. I thought I recognised the name. Behind the Crimson Blind, Carter Dickson. H.M. tangles with a master criminal in exotic Tangier. Oh. Let's try and get these in. Another Erskine Caldwell again. Southways. Great little cover, that one, isn't it? Once again mentioning God's Little Acre, like he never wrote anything else. Let's just rearrange these books ever so slightly. There we go. And then The Tall Man. This is G343. A.M. Harris, the great Australian prize-winning novel of the Korean War. Oh, there you go. Don't get many books on the Korean War, do we? And then 349. Just what you need. The Pan Book of Letter Writing. Dear, oh dear. Who writes letters these days, eh? It's all emails or texts or WhatsApps. A Lamp for Nightfall, another Erskine Caldwell. Once again, highlighting God's Little Acre, same sort of cover art, and that was released as Pan G350. Certainly not had any trouble getting those, which makes me think they sold very well. The Yellow Snake, Edgar Wallace, a chilling mystery by the ace thriller writer, who, as I said, I think is very much dated these days, Edgar Wallace. Patrick Quinton, Fatal Woman. God, I bet that would be lovely if it was a slightly better copy. But that's another really great sort of evocative sort of cover, that one, isn't it? Very nice. Shame my copy is always a slightly lower grade. Kicking Canvas, Captain A. Bestick, a tremendous story of sea adventure. Wow, look at that. It does look like they're hanging on for dear life, doesn't it? First Saint book we've seen today. The Saint Closes the Case. Leslie Charteris. Another bullet-packed Simon Templar mystery. Thriller even. Brilliant stuff. The Bone is Pointed, Arthur Upfield. The Outback's Weirdest Manhunt. Okay, that's interesting, isn't it? Eric Ambler, Judgment on Delchev, a breathless, headlong terror streak thriller. Don't know much about that one. I know Eric Ambler, but I never really read him, I don't think. The third Pan book of Crosswords. So 150 more popular puzzles that I will never ever do. But nice all the same. A Girl Named Tamiko, Ronald Kirkbride. And wasn't this one of those ones which had a slightly risque cover that they had to cover up later on? So yeah, this is actually the second printing from 1962 with the new cover. I believe the earlier version had a slightly even more risque outfit than she's in there. Hammondin, The Killer Mine. Hammondin's, so good thriller writer. Great book, Hornblower in the West Indies by C.S. Forrester. This is one of the ones that Penguin didn't have. So around this time, Penguin had published all the Hornblowers, except they didn't have these last two. So it was like Hornblower in the West Indies and Hornblower in the Atropes were Pan editions rather than Penguin. End of a Hate, Russell Braddon. Sequel to The Naked Island, the story that shocked the world. It shocked the world, you know. This is another one which is bagged up. Gideon's Month, J.J. Marek. It is also a PEF one, but it's not signed by PEF. It's just a particularly nice copy, and I thought I'd pop that one in a bag just for safekeeping. Ellery Queen, Calamity Town. 386. Branded and jailed as a murderer until Ellery Queen got tough. Another PEF jacket there. Perhaps not his best, but good all the same. Good all the same. 391, Saturday Night and Sunday Morning. Now, I do believe this was the first Pan million seller. I believe that was this particular book, starring Albert Finney, the film tie-in. Great jacket. That was, Pan's first massive million seller. Another Erskine Caldwell, Sure Hand of God, once again mentioning God's Little Acre as like the tie-in. It's almost like poor John Wyndham, every single book after the publication of Day of the Triffids featured by the author of Day of the Triffids, like we didn't know. John Creasy, A Case for Inspector West, 393. Creasy's world sales now exceed 20 million. This is another PEF cover. Nice, dark and atmospheric, that one. But not his best, although we've seen some absolute crackers today, haven't we, from PEF. And the last one I've got prior to number 400 is 399. It's The Millionth Chance. The story of R101, the end of an adventurous dream. R101, was that the big airliner that crashed? It was, wasn't it? Yeah. That was sort of the last we saw of those, wasn't it? George Lesser vividly reconstructs the birth and death of this monster of the air and the adventurous air age in which she was conceived. Yeah, and there's footage of it touring sort of America, isn't it? And then sadly exploded. Incredible bit of engineering in that one. So there we are. That rounds out that particular batch of lovely great Pan books, and I hope you have enjoyed looking through them. Certainly some absolute gems in there, and some typical Pan sort of books like Rex the Wonder Dog there, for example. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this look through this latest batch of great Pan paperbacks. Certainly some great stuff in there. If you have enjoyed today's video, do please give it a thumbs up. Do please consider subscribing for regular vintage Pan book content, and I shall look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.